And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another fabulous Commitment to Change conversation. We are in the presence of greatness here today with many of our honorees that we will be celebrating later this year at the 25th anniversary AACUC annual conference. We have with us today African American Credit Union Hall of Famers, as well as the new Maurice R. Smith DEI Leadership Award winners. So let me introduce our esteemed panel, and then we'll get into our conversations. So on our panel today include Adrienne Johnson, the Executive Vice President and CFO of AACUC Credit Union. Also Dolores Glover, Chairwoman for the Supervisory Committee of FAMU Federal Credit Union. Diane Rector, the Consumer Affairs Analyst at the National Credit Union Administration. Gary Officer, President and CEO of Center for Workforce Inclusion. Jackie Moore, President and CEO of Faith Community United Credit Union. Juan Fernandez, President and CEO of the Credit Union Association of New Mexico. Also Larry Sewell, Vice President of Community Outreach, retired from Together Credit Union. Woohoo. Also Marshall Boutwell, President and CEO of Peach State Federal Credit Union. And of course, the Honorable Mr. Rodney Hood, immediate past chair of the National Credit Union Administration. Thank you all for joining us today, and let's get into it. So I'll start with Mr. Johnson. Could you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about your journey in the credit union movement, and what was your path that got you here today?
All righty. So and thank you, Danya. So my name again is Adrienne Johnson. I'm Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer at AACUC Credit Union in Baltimore. And I started my credit union journey in July. It'll be 26 years. I've been in this industry 45 years in August. My first job was actually a coin teller. So my first employer, I came there with no skills. My first job was a coin teller. I came there with a high school diploma. When I left there, I left there with an MBA and a coin collector. So I call myself an educated coin collector. And so, so what leads me here today, I mean, I got a chance to formally set up the finance department at AACUC. And I was straight out of grad school. And so 3 months after I graduated, actually it was 2 months after I graduated from getting my MBA, I made my way to AACUC. And so I had the pleasure of working for Bert Hass Jr. for 17 years. And just really, it's been a good run. The credit union space has been good to me, but it's about people helping people. And so that's right up my alley. This organization has really helped me in many different ways. But I've been coming to the conference since 2004. And of course, I'll end it by saying chairman in 2018 to 2020. And unofficially, I think I'm the first chairman that was not a CEO. But I've been around so long, so I'll leave it right there for now. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. From counting coins to getting in the Credit Union Hall of Fame. Thank you for sharing your experience so far and for your service as chair for AACUC. Ms. Glover, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. Tell a little bit about your journey.
Well, initially, I was working for Florida A&M University, and of course, my boss, who was Nelson Bennett, was on the board of directors at the FAMU Federal Credit Union, and decided to ask me if I would serve on the supervisory committee to ensure that we had an election and making sure that that ran smoothly. And then I found myself in a situation where, in serving in that capacity over the years, realizing the magnitude and the importance of the credit union, and then finding that our credit union was in a very challenging position. And when you're in a challenging position, there is difficulty in finding hope sometimes when you're a very small credit union. And so the word hope was very important to us. We hear the M word a lot, and it's not the word mentor. And so the goal was to determine what is it that would ensure the legacy of a credit union that is one of the most oldest credit unions in the nation. And of course, there is a regulatory requirement that's called Dodd-Frank law. And in that law provides a very detailed information on preserving MDIs. And so I got the opportunity over the years, finally, to meet with, at that time, Chairman Rodney Hood, to talk about what is and what isn't, what could and could not be. In addition to that, being able to work with the African American Credit Union Coalition in finding members and mentors who were very committed to the preservation of small credit unions. And so I got myself deeply involved in that. And here I am, still fighting the good fight. On behalf of all small, historically Black credit unions that were in place prior to 1965.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Hope and preservation, those are two things we must hold on to if we want to see our credit union movement, continue and sustain. Now, the colors that you're wearing today, are they special?
Yes, of course. These are the Rattler colors,
All right.
orange and green. And we always remember, we will strike and strike and strike again.
Great.
That's what I've heard. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, you did mention Mr. Hood, so let me ask you, sir, would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Great. Well, first of all, I am so delighted to be here with everyone, and congratulations to all of this year's award nominees. And I can't wait to be with you all in person. I started my career indirectly in financial services. I had gone to Africa as a missionary, where I thought I was going to become an Episcopal priest. And I left Zambia and Zimbabwe and didn't sort of feel that I was called at that time. So I went into financial services, went into banking, but the banking that I went into was all around helping community development, economic renewal. And as I talked to my priests and others, they said that one needed wear the clerical collar to make a change and to leave an indelible mark in people's lives. So I get to do that every day, both in my work that I've had for nearly 30 years at some of the Wall Street firms that I've worked with. But the thing that's been consistent, even as I now work for my second term of service at the NCUA, it has been finding opportunities to display people helping people. I hope you all recognize that every day I get up thinking, how do I help our nearly 4,800 credit unions that are serving 135 million people? How do I give you all the regulatory flexibility and empowerment to serve your members? How do we keep you all safe and sound so that you can be there when your members need you most? So every day I get to really think, how am I going to help our MDIs, our CDFIs, our LIQs? How are we going to help you all continue to reach your potential while at the same time creating an environment where we can have some new de novo credit unions as well? Nothing pleases me more when I get to see credit unions that are going to be up and going to serve the underserved. There's a person that I had the opportunity to meet last week, and I'm a huge fan of Brian Stevenson, where he talks about how you need to be proximate. He wrote Just Mercy. I mean, if you may have seen the series, but I said, sir, I quote you often about being proximate to needs. You can't do a drive-by. It's about being close and engaged in those communities. And all of our credit unions have that proximity. They're able to build those relationships. And what I do, as whether I'm chairman or vice chairman from a decade or so ago or now board member, I look forward to just empowering you all so that we can continue to be that port in the storm. And I look forward to being an example. When I became chairman, I was the first man of color to ever oversee a financial regulatory agency. That's whether it's the FDIC, the OCC, or the Federal Reserve. And I could have done a number of things. I could have just posed for cameras as the first, or I could have made demonstrable change in action. And I've chosen the latter to make sure that you all are hearing from me about what are the things we need to do that are going to be long lasting around creating opportunities for hope and a bright future. And I look forward to seeing you all in person. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hood, and for all that you do so that our credit unions can create possibilities, right, without boundaries. So thank you for that. And audience members, if you haven't noticed already, there's a trend here. Our honorees and award winners, they're legends, and they've made history in their own right. So make sure you are jotting down the nuggets of knowledge and all the great learnings that they will share. And I'm sure a theme will be where you thought your journey was going to take you, where you wanted to start your career, and how it ended, or where it is today. Maybe a little different, but it's great to hear where that journey what it has included and where it's taken you. So I'm going to stay with the NCUA and now turn to Ms. Rector, Diane Rector. Let us know who you are. Give us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Thank you very much. My name is Diane Rector, and I am a Consumer Affairs Analyst with NCUA. I will be celebrating my 26th anniversary with NCUA on June the 8th. I started in 1997 as an examiner. And then when an examination, you have a certain amount of hours to go in to examine the credit union. You can't do anything else. You just got to do, it's about safety and soundness. So I was going into small credit unions, and I wanted to do so much more, like help them write policies, provide resources to outreach initiatives and things like that. And as soon as the position was available for the economic development specialist, I was promoted in 1999 to be an economic development specialist. And that was great for me. That was the best job ever. And so what that gave to me was unlimited hours, not like endless hours, but unlimited hours for me to sit down and really work with the credit unions and not feel that I was in threat to them and an intimidation, because when you're an examiner, they think you have a badge and they're intimidated with you. And I had to let them know that, yes, I'm with NCUA. It's not as an examiner, I'm not I got you, but I am an I got you as an EDS, because I got you, I have your back. And that's what I'm here for. And so I did that for a long time. And then in 2017, NCUA did a reorganization, and the Office of Small Credit Initiatives was it was closed. And so what I asked to do to be reassigned to a consumer affairs analyst, and I think I still help them out as well with the consumers. And how I got here is, it's just my need to help. The need to help, and not, it's the thing about this is that you give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. What I wanted the credit unions to do is say, I'm not just here to give you a fish for you to do it today. I'm here to teach you, because once I'm gone, I want you to be able to do the work. And what I had to explain to them is that it's what with the credit union movement, it's not just a time where we're in a time warp. It's that let's do what we can do, that when we're gone, our legacy lives on. And so that's what was I about. And this is what I embraced.
That's fantastic to have that forward-thinking, futuristic type of mindset. It's not necessarily about the immediate here and now, but what's to come. So it sounds like your passion, as well as having unrestricted boundaries, allowed you to do some great partnering and help build sustainability within our small credit unions, or all the credit unions that you've been able to serve. Very good. Well, thank you again for being on the panel.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let me get Mr. Officer in the conversation. So Gary Officer, would you mind sharing a little bit about your path?
Thank you, and big props to Mike Mercer, someone I came across many years ago from the Georgia League. I see he has joined us, so good to see you, Mike. So you didn't mention that I ran the National Credit Union Foundation in part of my career, and that career point was the sum of the parts that came before. So I'm a Black Brit from London of Jamaican parents who moved to Chicago and became a housing developer. Went to Boston to run the nation's first public-private partnership that was financing affordable housing through a network of nonprofits. And when I came down to Washington, D.C. to run what was then called, what still called, the National Credit Union Foundation. At that point in time, I had no prior experience in credit unions. What I did do was I reached out to all of my Jamaican cousins in New York. And I gave them a little poll. Are you a credit union member? Yes. Are you satisfied with your credit union? Yes. What do you use your credit union for? Auto loans. Is it a great industry? It's the best. So that was my preparation for, can you see me? For the National Credit Union Foundation. I also have this impatience and this sort of bold personality where I deem it important for us to call out injustice. I believe it's important for us to speak the truth to injustice and to do all that we can to remove barriers for opportunities for every American. That flowed into my work at the National Credit Union Foundation. We had a nascent fund called the Community Investment Fund. Some of you guys may remember that. We had about $14 million in the CIF. When I left, we had $375 million. And why was that? Now, why was that? Because when I came to the Credit Union Foundation, I came out of Boston and having worked with State Street Bank and all the CEOs, and all these guys were major thinkers. And so I figured there has to be one or two leaders within the mainstream credit union movement that if we can tap their conscience, if we can mobilize their peers, if we can demonstrate the impact of credit union philanthropy, then this foundation could be the biggest there is in the association community. And I went to 3 CEOs. Brian McDonald, great guy, love him to death. He wouldn't play. Frank Pollock, great guy, wonderful credit union. He wouldn't play. Then I went to a meeting and I saw this guy with an accent from North Carolina. And when he spoke, nobody uttered a single word. He had the audience enthralled by his mere presence. That person was Jim Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
I went to meet with Jim Blaine. Jim, you are the second largest credit union in the world. If you were a bank, you'd be taxed. You'd be held to CRA requirements. You cannot hide behind a slogan of people helping people. Because a slogan is not a strategy. A slogan is not a tactic. So I met with Jim and I discussed with him the need for us to build something that represent the entire movement. I said, can you help me get to $100 million? Jim said, why? So this is a good goal. Jim said, why stop there? I said, okay, let's try 200. He said, why? Why stop there? Should we try 300? Now you're talking. And oh, by the way, there's a fellow in California called Ed Callahan. 12 credit union CEOs are his prodigies. Let's sit down with Ed and build a fund in his name. We raised $100 million in 6 months. And as we were growing the CIF, as it's going up in numbers, I began to realize something else. That the credit union movement, not as it is today, as Rodney has outlined, I'm immensely impressed, by the way, with how far the movement has come based on Rodney's comments before, the earlier part of this conversation. That was not the standard back then, 20 years ago. It was not the standard. We've come a long way. We weren't there then. Then I began to hear about something else. I asked my colleague, Bill Crowley, where are the minorities in the credit union system? It's unsettling. I saw more diversity in the banking community than I did at the GAC. I saw more CEOs coming through the halls of CUNA but none of them look like us. Bill, where are we? Well, Gary, there's a group called the AACUC. It's really small. There's a guy out in Prince George's County. His name is Michael Hale. I said, okay, I want to meet Michael Hale. So I began to reach out to Michael. Then I met Bert. Then I met Hubert. Then I met Renee. And at the GAC, I saw this small group of African Americans who were really there as a support system. But in the leadership core, we had individuals who could visualize a future we hadn't seen. They were pitching DEI and mentorship and sharing in a way that I had not seen in the credit union system, because each of those individuals needed each other. And we became a collective.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Officer. I totally agree. And I thank you for honoring all of our, or many of our founders and legends within AACUC, Ms. Sadie White, Mr. Hash, et cetera. I think a few of them are on the call. Yes, if you could just adjust your camera. I'd like to invite a couple of the rest of our panelists into the conversation, make sure that they get introduced.
Oh,
So
please.
I would love to come back to you on a couple of items, but thank you for your impatience in turning that into action. So we'll come back to that.
Please.
Yes. Jackie Moore, would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about how you got to where you are today?
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you all. I started the Faith Community Credit Union. It was formerly Mount Sinai Baptist Church Credit Union. The churches were really moving in the credit union industry, helping our people and communities through the church. I started in 1985 as a teller, just inputting information, had no idea what our mission was. Moving forward through the years, I became the assistant manager, treasurer, all those titles that are now gone. To today, I'm now the CEO of Faith Community, over 37 years in the industry. Thank you all. Thank you. And I too, as I've heard all the others say, I've had the pleasure of meeting so many of you all, and the industry is real. It is really a real industry, and our people need so much help. Not just our people, the whole community, our people, it embodies so many cultures. And here at Faith, that's what we're striving to work on now. What can we do for this underserved community? We have to try all that we can do to bring the people forward. I'm just listening to what you all were saying. I remember when we became a CDFI, I remember that and how important grants are. We had no idea, being made up of volunteers, some we still have today, that really truly wanted to see us advance. They just stepped up and did what needed to be done. Those heroes like Mrs. Haynes and so many. I see Sheila. I just sit in awe of this panel, the Burts, the Rodneys. I heard these names so many times, and just what you all have met and how you've helped Faith throughout the years. I can reach out to anyone and say, hey, we need help. We're trying to get a new payday loan in place to help, and we shut down payday lenders on the corners of our streets. I mean, we're fighters, we're warriors for this mission. And I'm just glad to be a part of it, and just can't wait to see what the future is for our industry.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, that is the power of AACUC, of supporting each other and lifting each other up. So glad that you are here, and congratulations on all that you've accomplished.
Thank you.
Let me invite Juan. Juan, would you please share a little bit about yourself, your journey, your path, how you became who you are?
Well, good morning, good afternoon for those of you that are in the East Coast. My name is Juan Fernandez, and I'm currently the CEO of the Credit Union Association of New Mexico, soon to be the CEO of the Louisiana Credit Union League. So how I got here, thank you, everyone. I started out like many of the fellow panelists. I started out as a teller when I was in my teens at a small credit union in upstate New York. And in all honesty, for a number of years, I really saw that as just a job. It was something I was doing while going to college. And then eventually I came across some folks like the late Joey Kussminer from Bethx Credit Union in the Bronx, who really started inspiring me. And I started really thinking like, you know, there's something here. There's something, you know, this could be a career for me. Then I started seeing people that looked like me. And I started seeing like, wow, I could really see myself building a career in this movement. And one thing led to the other. I started, as a teller, eventually started working in credit union associations and leagues. And that's what's brought me here. And to the question of how I got here, obviously a lot of that was perseverance, but there were key things along the way that helped me get here that I think are so important for us to keep in mind as we try to strive for more diversity in our movement. One of them was internships. I started as an intern in the legislature. That led to me getting a job at the New York State Credit Union League, as it was then known. That was key for me. But it was also that mentorship and people seeing something in someone that was starting out as an emerging leader. People like Paolo De Filippi taking me under his wing. So I was so proud when he won an award last year because he is a hero. But most importantly, I would say that when I was applying for this job here in New Mexico, it was organizations like AACUC. Renee and Grace were quick to call me, say, how can we help? How can we help get you over the finish line? And to me, that is key, because if we want to have more people of color in credit union or positions across the country, we need to help uplift and equip people with the tools that they need. So I look forward to going to the South and being a person of color in the South as a league president, and I can't wait to see what we can do together.
Oh, that's fantastic, Juan. Congratulations. And, you know, you noticed I call him Juan rather than Mr. Fernandez. I started my credit union journey in New Mexico, where I first met Juan many, many years ago. And to see your journey, I'm just so proud of you and all that you've done for that state. So thank you. And thank you for being here today. All right, let me get to Larry Sewell. Sir, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself? What don't we know about Mr. Sewell?
Well, that would be writing of, excuse that spam call in the back. It should stop in a minute. But Larry Sewell is just a guy from Birmingham, Alabama, a preacher's kid who had the good fortune to serve in the United States Air Force, retire as a commissioned officer, and found out about this movement called credit unions in 1995. And that was my first introduction to credit unions in 1995. And I was just looking for something to grasp hold to, and I stumbled upon it. When I left the Air Force, I started with credit unions, and that's been it. It's been credit unions ever since then. It's been a great journey for me. And then another big opportunity was in 2008, 2009. Man, I stumbled upon this organization called the African American Credit Union Coalition, introduced to me by the late great Hubert Huisman, who was the first Black CEO of a credit union that I met. And that conference then was in St. Louis, Missouri. And I invited the AACUC group to my credit union. I can't tell you why I did it, but I was just curious at the time. And once I got to meet all those fine, fantastic people, I knew then that I wanted to learn more, I wanted to do more, and I wanted to work with professionals who looked like me, because I had not experienced that before. And since then, it's been great. All I wanted to do was contribute. Little did I know that somehow I would be on our board of directors as a member. And at some point, that board thought well enough of me to ask me to be the chair of this fine organization. And by the way, which is the pinnacle of my career, is serving as the chair of AACUC. And who knew that this great honor would be bestowed upon me? I still say I don't deserve it. I've told Renee that multiple times. She didn't listen to me. Surprise about that. But here we are. It's great to share this panel with this wonderful group of people. And I just look forward to meeting and seeing everyone again in, of all places, Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're looking forward to that. So thank you, Don.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I think that is so relatable, sir. Many on the call can probably relate where we stumbled into credit unions. But once you get that taste of a credit union, there's no turning back. So thank you for your service again as chairman as well. Well, to round us out, certainly not last but not least, Mr. Marshall Boutwell. Sir, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your career?
Sure. First of all, I've heard a lot of comments, and I several of them relate directly with me. Mike Mercer, for example, became a mentor for me in my credit union career. But I came up in the late 40s and 50s and 60s. So I'm the old man in the group. I also perhaps am the only non-minority in the group. But I grew up not too far from my friend Maurice Smith, about 125 to 150 miles up the road in eastern North Carolina in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I have an understanding of bias and segregation and so forth, but I also grew up in the military. My father was a career military officer, and I went on to over 5 years in the military serving my country. And when I got out, I went back to college, wound up studying trust management, and went to work for a bank in Atlanta, Georgia. Several years later, I wound up at NBG, First American Bank, which provided services to credit unions. And I wound up in charge of the department that provided those services, share draft processing, ATM processing, and so forth. So I got my taste as a vendor and a provider of services for credit unions. I might add, I was also active in the United Way when I was in Atlanta. And 40 years ago, we almost took the pillars of Atlanta down when the committee that I led, equalized the support for Scouts and young people based on gender. You see, the Boy Scouts got 2 or 3 times as much per Scout as the Girl Scouts. And we changed that. And you would have thought the pillars of Atlanta were going to fall. Well, the girls got cookies to sell, and we just said, well, you better learn to sell something, because we're gonna support the girls and the boys equally. And I will tell you, growing up in the South, I heard all about the South, and I heard from family members all the bad words. I didn't hear that from my father, and we understood that we all wore the same color uniform and we bled the same color. Eventually, I wound up going to work for a small credit union in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and it was lily white. But a few years later, when Rodney Hood came to visit our credit union, by that time we'd grown from 14 million to a little over 100 million, and I had 44 employees, and our racial diversity was exactly 25%. It is now 35 to 40%. I didn't do it because of DEI. I didn't do it because of somebody telling me to do it. I did it because it was the right thing. And that's the way I've led that credit union. And we're now almost $1 billion in total assets. We have a back office QSO that supports small credit unions, one of which is faith-based, and I would say majority Black. We also provide all the support services for Omega Psi-Phi Credit Union. This is a personal journey for me. I believe in doing the right thing. And I don't see it as a cause. I just see it as, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And I used to upset my colleagues from time to time because I used to say to them at conferences and so forth that I have to pinch myself all the time because I feel like I'm on vacation. I have a passion for what I'm doing. We have a very diverse credit union. We serve a very diverse membership. Our workforce reflects our membership. Our workforce reflects the communities that we serve. And that's just a common purpose that we have. Do the right thing. And hopefully we understand what the right thing is. And I can tell you, my favorite president is Abraham Lincoln because he preserved the Union. My favorite general is U.S. Grant. Ruthless, but he preserved the Union. And I'm a big believer in that. Wow. We're all in this boat together. And I'm going to say one other thing. One of the questions that was asked was talking about, what do you wish somebody had taught you or shared with you earlier in your career? And I'm going to say this. When I was 43 years old, I learned about the power of forgiveness. You see, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My mother was bipolar and my father had anger management issues. But at 43, I truly understood the power of forgiveness. And I think we all need to think about that. We need to forgive others and free ourselves from hate. And let's work together to build a better world, one member at a time, one person at a time. And that's where I am. So thank you for the honor of being included in such an august group of honorees. And there's no saying no to Renee Sadie-White, as all of you know. That's why I'm wearing a coat and tie. Please see that, Grace.
Well done, sir. Thank you for sharing all of that. Yes and yes. And while you open the door, I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a sampling of what you'll experience on site during the conference as we celebrate these honorees and those that weren't able to join the call. So I'd like to round us out with a flash round of answering either that question, what is something that you wish someone had told you earlier in your career, or perhaps a big learning lesson that you gleaned from your experience. Juan, you mentioned mentorship and internship, and Mr. Boutwell, you mentioned a few things just now. So we'll do a round robin, but do I have a volunteer that had a burning thought as soon as we talked about, what do you wish someone had told you maybe earlier on in your career? All right, well then I will call on Miss Glover. You have a beautiful smile and I saw you smiling. So what would you like to share?
Well, one of the things that I've learned in this industry that I wish I had known some time ago is the serious disparity in the community of the underserved and how it has had a long-term effect on their wealth and their ability to have access. And if I had known that early on, I think I would have done this a lot earlier because the power of access to financial resources is definitely a change in the lives of so many. And I think that, and then understanding the legislative barriers that the Honorable Rodney Hood sort of dispelled during his tenure made a very big difference in how we're able to leverage resources now. Even though there is a lot more to do, I think us understanding the legislative, the regulatory, and the guidance of how it affects our community is a very important piece. And I think delving into that now, if I was able to delve in that a lot sooner, I think we could have made some changes a lot sooner. And so understanding those factors and how they impact the ground is very important. Thank you for asking.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone agree with that topic or had something else that they wish they had known earlier?
I agree wholeheartedly. And I must say, I wish someone had told me when I embarked upon my career in financial services nearly 30 years ago that the percentages of people who look like me would be going up every year, and they have not. They've actually remained flat and stagnant at a roughly 9%, you all, of most leaders in financial services firms are people of color. And I would not have thought that I would still, even in 2023, go to events where I'm still the only minority in the room in some instances. So I wish I had known that, because perhaps there's more that I could have done for 30 years now around mentoring and outreach. So while I can't make up for the past 30 years, I'm delighted that now through groups such as AACUC, through a lot of our efforts, we recognize that there's more that needs to be done, not just about recruiting minority talent, but how do you retain it? How do you bolster their opportunities for career growth and progression? So I am delighted that I think we're seeing a seismic shift, that people now recognize the role that minorities play in bringing them into leadership roles within companies, doing it sustainably. The McKinsey study is one that shows that when you have minority boards, when you have minority leaders, you're able to have varying opinions that really help you influence your strategy. I think credit unions have long recognized this, but I'm glad to see the rest of the world sort of following from that example. But I do wish someone had told me that I would be continuing to preach the same message for 30 years. But I do think that message now is getting more traction, as evidenced by a lot of the DEI initiatives that we're seeing. Is getting traction by the fact that people like us are all going to be roving ambassadors for greater diversity within the financial services arena.
Excellent. Thank you,
Hi,
sir, for sharing. Yes. What's that, Diane?
Yes, so I'm gonna piggyback a little bit. So when I'm gonna cry. When Renee called me to tell me that I was honored with this award, I cried. I said, who, me? This single Black woman raising 3 kids and then raising 2 of my a niece and a nephew, 5 kids. Me, single mom, me that worked full-time and daytime and went to full-time at college at nighttime and graduated in 3 years. You talk about me. Did I mean something to someone? You know, I do things because the passion that I have, and not just with people. It's like moving forward. I was a college professor for 12 years, and I had students that I taught them about the credit unions, and I did all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I learned is that I had to take a self-reflection look at myself, because everybody wants to have a seat at the table. I want a seat at the table. It's not just important to have a seat at the table. It's to have a voice at the table and be heard. And when we talk about this, one of the biggest things that I am really grateful for is that way before DEI was a political statement, I was telling the credit unions to have a representation of your field of membership within your board and within your staff, and to have a bilingual employee way before.
Amen.
And one other thing is too, is that with the difference between a credit union and a bank is that with a credit union member, they have ownership. It's an own thing. So it's almost a piece of the wrapping up with the DEIB. It's belonging. That's one of the human's needs. Everyone wants to belong. And I wish I had, I'm just honored for this. And it's really nothing that I wish I had known, because everything that I've learned with people and through my jobs and opportunities, I'm just happy to be able to still standing here and to move forward. And the last message is that my mom always said, give me my flowers where I'm living. Now I'm getting my award while I'm here and still standing and not being able to give my award to my family because I'm no longer here. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And that is one of the
Well said.
hallmarks of AACUC is we love to honor and give the flowers when people can receive them. So thank you for sharing your voice and being heard and encouraging others to do so.
Yes, I agree. This is Jacqueline Moore. I agree with Diane and all that I've heard so far. I wish that when I started at the credit union at the age of 18, I knew then what this meant now. Being young, taking a job just to pay, my parents gave me a car for graduation and said, you must pay your insurance. You must keep gas in. And I was an honor student at Jane Addams Business Center. And our teacher came in and said, there's a credit union that needs help. They don't have anyone that knows computers. And I said, I'll take it. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'll take it. I didn't even know what a credit union was. And I was just wish that I could have spoken with that 18, that 20-some-year-old to say, this is a mission. My parents marched in the civil rights era, and my dad lived and was born in Selma. And I could see it in my house, bits and pieces, but to know this is real, it affects the community, the world at large. And as Diane mentioned, DEI, it's so sad that it took a George Floyd for this to come to this level. We've been fighting it and preaching it forever. We've been fighting and preaching about it for so long, and now it's here. I'm so thankful, like you, Diane, when Renee called me, we were out driving and she reached me, we played phone tag, I stopped. My sister got the message, but she didn't tell me. She wanted me to get it from Renee. And Renee told me, and my sister said, you spoke with Renee? I said, we finally got together. She said, congratulations. Because you stayed at Faith from 18 through today. You could have gone anywhere. You love this. So many people are like, why there, Jackie? It's so much to do. But I said, that community right now needs me. God hasn't said move. He said, prepare, fight, do it. And as Diane said, we need seats at the table, but we on this committee and our credit unions, we need foot soldiers. We need those out in the field to take it from the table, help the people. And that's what I love about it. We go into the schools and the pandemic hit us so hard. It affects us financially. People are scared to borrow. All these things are going on, yet we persevere, we press on. And we go into the neighborhoods and say, come on, we can do this. So I'm glad. I love the AACUC. Renee, thank you. Thank the whole committee for just thinking of me. Like Diane said, wow, we can yet smell our flowers. Appreciate the community. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I am so thankful. And I just want us to do more. And maybe this is our spot in time, that the light is on us through the DEI, that we can just take this moment and move forward and just show the world as one group. You know, we have all of our credit unions, different SEG groups. I too, Diane said we needed a bilingual employee, still do. I agree with all of that that's being said, so much that we do for the people. And that's where my heart is, the children. We have to pass it on. We're gonna have to pass it on because we won't be here forever. I don't see 37 years more at the table, but I want to pass it on to those behind us, because Renee can even say the groups that were with the AACU from the beginning, they passed it on, and Renee is now there. Change has taken place. It's so much more. It's just so much more. And I am so thankful for her and just everyone involved this panel. I'm honored to be named among you guys. Thank you. Thank you. So I tell my 18-year-old self, forgive yourself. You're here now, and press on.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for that charge. That is a charge and a mantle I think we all can take on our shoulders. You know, we like to start on time and end on time at AACUC, but because we have such an incredible panel here, I think we can go over just a few minutes. So I would love to make sure that Mr. Johnson, Mr. Sewell, Mr. Officer, and also Mr. Fernandez, what if you can share that your nugget of knowledge, either something that was a challenge that you've overcome, or something again that you wish you had known earlier in your career. I open the floor to you.
I guess for me, and of course, I like to be transparent on a lot of things. Anybody know me when I was the chairman? For me, professional challenges have not been many, but personal challenges certainly have been multiple. And so, Dan mentioned a few things, but I think about it. I never knew I was going to go through a divorce. I never knew I was going to fracture my ankle. I never knew I was going to get remarried. I thought I was going to, I was smart enough to go to college, but it was about money. It wasn't about me being smart. So I was going to go to University of Maryland, College Park. Sorry, Rodney, I know you're a Tar Heel, but all these life, right? Life happens, right? And so you got to keep moving forward. My wife's a PK. We were married. I remarried New Year's Day, 2017 in Atlanta. And, we didn't even get to our 11th month. It was the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. She had a heart attack. And it still hurts me. But she had emergency open heart surgery. Fast forward 2019, she had to have open heart surgery again. And we've had struggles since. Her last hospital stay was June of last year. And so this is a woman that's not even 60 years old yet. She'll be 60 at the end of December. So, when we talk about, we're talking about the AACUC trying to get people financial healthy. We gotta be healthy. We can't make any contributions if we're not healthy. And so I had a mom that died at 50, I had a dad that died at 65. And so, I'm glad to be getting my roses now because I don't know what that's going to look like later. But I've been trying to take care of myself. And so that's very important. But if I knew what I know, then if I knew what I know now, and it's all centered, health, mental health, physical health, and financial health. And so, my gift just happens to be centered around money. And I like to help people talk, and I love to talk about money. Anybody knows me, love to talk about money, but I want people to be financial healthy. But my struggles have not really been professional. It's all the life hiccups that happen, and you got to persevere and you got to be resilient. And if you need mental health, EAP, go get mental health, do what you got to do to keep moving forward. And so I've been blessed. I've been very successful. But I'm just a little Black boy from Baltimore City, and who's done some things. So, but I just keep pressing forward. And my saying is, from Bobby Kennedy: some people see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not. And so this organization certainly has been good to me. But I worked, started with the internship committee, founding member of Eastern Regional Chapter. And so I was there looking at the Hubert Huismans, the Michael Hales, the Bill Porters, Bert Hash. And Bill wasn't a chairman, but Bill gave up dollars to help support this organization. So Sheila Montgomery, one of my favorite people, of course, along with Renee, Helen Godfrey Smith, Lynette Smith, of course, Barbara Stevens. So all these people I saw. So I feel like I'm a second generation and I, just want to carry that forward. So I just hope that we can, we have an endowment we started, $50,000. We want to get that thing to $1 million. I know some people out there that know people to help us get there. And so it's about legacy building. And so, you give of your time, you give of your treasure. And so we need your time, definitely need your time, get involved, but we also need your treasure. And so for this organization to be sustainable, we need your treasure as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that reminder, not only about the treasure, but also the well-being, your being whole and your full well-being. So I'm thankful for what you just shared. All right, as we round out, some final legacy lessons from either one, Mr. Sewell or Mr. Officer.
I'll be brief. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. My parents were immigrants from Dominican Republic, and we really grew up with very little. And there were many things my parents taught me, but among them was, I needed to work hard, but also I needed to help out those that needed help. So I always thought, when I was really young, I thought I'd become a priest. And then eventually I thought I'd become a politician. And what I really wish I had learned sooner in the credit union movement was that you can have so much change right here in our movement. When I moved to New Mexico 15 years ago, it was not unusual to see predatory lenders charging people over 1,000% APR for small dollar loans. I mean, it was rampant, it was awful, and it particularly preyed on people of color. And it was actually credit unions. Winona Nava was one of the champions that for years really worked on that. And we all came together as credit unions and we were able to rein in the predatory lending industry here in New Mexico once and for all. And I just wish I had known that sooner. And I hope all of you know that, because I think it's when we work together and we focus on change and making something happen, the sky is the limit.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan. Yes, focus on change. What can we do? Mr. Sewell, Mr. Officer.
Go ahead, Gary, please.
Oh, if you could come off mute, let me see.
I'm still processing the comments of Diane and Adrian and a few others. Because what AACUC has allowed us to be is to be vulnerable among our peers. I remember about 5 years ago, so I am an identical twin whose brother died 4 years ago, dropped dead. And every day I think about my twin brother. Because all aspects of my journey through life, he was always very present. And I remember the phone calls from Sheila and Michael and the flowers and the calls. And that meant a great deal to me for this very basic reason. And this is my first lesson about this country. In this country, more than any other country in the developed world, you are on your own. America is about individualism. Even our suburban communities don't have sidewalks. People aren't supposed to engage one another, right? So my first lesson coming to the US was basically, this is a country where you will succeed or fail without the expectation of others coming to your aid. The other thing I learned about this country, which I think is symbolic of the African diaspora, is the division between the diaspora Africans and the African-American community. People don't realize the awfulness of slavery, of segregation, of Jim Crow, of traveling north if you had to find jobs and living in obscene conditions. I learned that in Chicago when I landed from London in 1990. I could not believe Robert Taylor Holmes and Cabrini Green. I thought I was in Beirut. And this was the US. So the corrosive aspects of racism has really damaged a generation of our people. And we have to acknowledge that as our reality. For many of us, that has emboldened us and become our strength. And we see that in the AACUC. It's driven our purpose. It's informed our values. It's created a certain resiliency that keeps us going forward. that's the experiences that came from our past, but it has affected who we are as people. So racism, isolation, resilience, and overcoming our vulnerabilities, which is always very real. And I've found the AACUC an extraordinarily welcoming place. As you can tell, I can talk all day. But when they called me that day, they said you were in a Hall of Fame, I was flabbergasted. I cried.
Mm.
Because I felt this sense of belonging, and now there was a sense of acknowledgement that I too belong in this community, among these people who are doing some wonderful work. So the AACUC means a lot to me. I'm so, today's conversations, testimonies was just so powerful. And I thank you, Renee, and the other honorees. I congratulate you on your election to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing.
Go ahead, Marshall.
Oh, I was just going to say, well said. And you know, I've only rarely been a minority. And I will tell you of an experience. When I went to the board meeting of the Omega Sci-Fi board to talk about back office services 13 years ago, I was nervous. I was going to go into a room full of Black men. And I never felt so welcomed in all my life. And, you know, I'm humbled to be part of this group. Thank you so much for being included. I look forward to seeing you in July.
Mm.
God bless us all.
Mm.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sewell.
Oh, I just appreciate everyone here, all of our members of our organization. You know, that question just struck me. What would I like to have known earlier? I wouldn't say nothing, but I don't think I would be the person who I am today. If you got to go through to break through, and going through and becoming more refined and becoming a better person. So that's what I appreciate. So I'm glad I didn't know all that stuff. I probably wouldn't have been able to handle it anyway at that young age. So I appreciate the journey. Not that the journey was always easy. And you know, there's a song that says that nobody told me that the road would always be easy, but he didn't bring us this far to what? To leave us. And the Lord definitely has not left the African American Credit Union Coalition. So thank you for all of you on the board. Thank you for on this panel. Thank you for our board. I'm so appreciative to be a part of that board. I couldn't put into words what the last 13 years of being part of this board has meant to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee.
Well, thank you to all of our esteemed panelists. As everyone can see, there's such a wealth of knowledge and experience and impact that's represented with 9 of these honorees here today. So we thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your the lessons that you've learned. Before I turn things over to SB to close us out, I would like to just acknowledge any other honorees, past AACUC honorees that are on the line with us. If you'd like to raise your virtual hand, I know Mr. Ed Presnell, Mike Mercer, former Hall of Famers, and a few may have dropped off before now. So we just wanted to acknowledge you and recognize your presence with us today. All right, very good. Well, SB, will you close us out?
Of course, I'm going to keep it super brief. Thank you all so much for joining us and staying with us a little bit longer. Definitely worth it because there is so much inspirational messages shared. Only my coffee has not kicked in yet. But thank you so much to everybody for joining us. Board members, staff, chapter officers, thank you always for your support. With that, I'm going to do the plug-in for our next CTC conversation, which is June 16th at 1 p.m. Keep your eyes out on our newsletter and social media for more details on that and to pre-register. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful weekend, a happy Friday. Thank you so much. Board, staff, and our amazing panelists, please stay on.